a very big chunk of being an engineer and being in the studio is dealing with people. Just finishing up final mixes on a record, come back, sit back down, drive's gone. Lost the entire record. We started over. It's an artist that I had his posters on my wall before this. To be like sitting with him, having keys to his house, watching TV with him.
Eating Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Welcome to Elevate Music Talks, the podcast that will elevate you and your music to the next level. I am your host, Marco Fazio, and I want to thank you for being here with me today. My first guest on the podcast is Jeremy Underwood. Jeremy is a music producer, recording and mixing engineer with more than 20 years of experience in the music business. He has worked with artists like Marilyn Manson, John Mayer, Lala Hathaway, as well as on movie soundtracks such as Whiplash, Manchester by the Sea, Furious 7, and many more. He is currently working as a house sound engineer at Santa Monica Studio, a facility who focuses on the creation of video games. Here is my conversation with Jeremy. We are rolling.
Sweet.
Jeremy, thank you for being here.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Where do you come from? Come from work now?
Yeah, just came from Santa Monica Studios. So
how was it?
It's good. It's a busy day.
Yeah?
Had like 5 actors in today.
Okay.
Just picking up okay, you've got 50 lines, you've got 75 lines, you've got 80 lines, just picking up little pieces here and there.
Nice. You're working full-time there, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, since January.
Okay. Wow. That's like a change. That's a change from Firehouse, right?
Totally. Yeah. Monday through Friday gig, which is kind of unheard of in the audio business.
Yeah, right. It's like, what? You're not freelancing?
Yeah. It's like Monday through Friday, 9 to 6.
Wow.
I'm out.
And you're on salary?
I'm not on salary.
Okay.
Let's talk of that after the year, the first of the year kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm just still contract with them right now.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
But it's been great.
Nice.
It's been fun.
So you've been doing that for the past?
I guess about the last 2.5 years I've been doing a ton of video game stuff.
Okay.
And it just kind of, as I was started freelancing after the last studio I was at closed down. Then I had, I was working at a ton of film score stuff, but then a friend of mine who worked on video games was like, hey man, would you want to fill in at the studio I'm at? And so I started filling in with them, and then I got sent over to, the studio I'm at now, and they worked on a couple games there, and then one of their guys went out for paternity leave. And then so I was there like a lot while he was gone. And then after that, they were like, he was moving to a different department, and they said, do you want to just take over his spot? And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Cool.
I had a baby. Baby coming. It's like, having the weekends with the baby and spend time with the family is kind of nice.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So let's do a quick recap on your career, background. So you're from Texas.
I am.
Right?
Born in Amarillo, grew up in El Paso.
Fantastic. And you have a degree in business.
I do.
So what kind of general business?
Yeah, business administration. So I actually started off when I got ready to go to college. I wanted to do digital special effects. And so my brother was at Texas Tech, and so when I went to check the place out, they were like, "Oh yeah, we have a great computer department that does all this." And so I was like, well, this is a no-brainer. Let's do this. And then I got there and they were like, oh yeah, we really only have computer science. So there's no animation programs or any of that stuff. So I started doing computer science since I'm a computer nerd. And about halfway into it, I was like, I don't want to spend my entire life programming, because it was, it just wasn't for me. There's some people who are just really good at it and really love it. And I just didn't. I was spending 15 hours a day looking at code on a screen, pretty isolated world. And I was like, I don't really love this. And then about that time, I started playing in bar bands and
played bass, right?
Play bass.
Play bass, yeah.
Very poorly, but I do play bass. But, so I started playing in bands and got a little 4-track recorder at home. And I was like, I really like doing this. I wish there was a way that you could make a career out of this. I had no idea that there was, I was like, I don't want to go on tour all the time. I don't want to be a live sound guy. Yeah. And then I was having dinner with a family friend who's a session drummer.
Okay.
And he was like, so you're into making music and you're into computers. It sounds like you just want to be an engineer. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to go out on the road. And he goes, be a studio engineer.
Oh.
And I was like, up until that point, I was like,
what is this?
I was completely unaware that this was a real job that I could have. And so I,
cool.
So I, said, all right, well, let me look into it. And so I got on the very, very early internet, on my dial-up internet, and found out that there was like schools that would teach you how to like work in a pro studio.
And when was that?
2002, 2001.
So that was pre-internet.
It was,
wow.
We were into the internet, but you know, like
early.
You only had super high speed if like on our college campus.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing. Like you always had that one friend who had cable internet.
Yeah,
You're like, this is amazing. You know.
2001, you said? 2001. So that's like just post Napster thing.
Yeah. So that was like the first time I ever really like got introduced to like, you know, T1 connections and super fast smoking internet was, you know, in our college dorms, and people were like, oh my God, we found a way to download music. And I'm like, this seems weird. Is this the thing? Like,
yeah.
But it was like, you know, if I tried to do it on my home thing, it'd be like, oh, you want to download this song? It's going to take you 6.5 days. And then you're going to get it downloaded. And it's not even going to be the real song. It's going to be somebody that named their song.
Oh, yeah. So remember.
You always get the fake stuff.
And you're like, oh, man, I waited. I should have gone to the store.
I waited a week. I'm just going to go to the store and buy it now.
That's funny. Funny. That's cool.
So when I was doing that, once I discovered that I want to go to one of these schools.
Help yourself, though.
My parents were like, you need to, you're right at the end of finishing college.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if I do business administration, then I can, have a business background when I go into the music business.
Yeah, the music business, yeah.
I was like, this will work. This could work. And so I finished up getting my business degree and then went off to Arizona to go to recording school.
What was the name of the recording school?
Conservatory Recording Arts and Sciences.
Okay, so that's when you really learned the technical.
Yeah,
thing.
they were. It was, looking back on it now, it was a great program because they broke everybody. It didn't matter what level you were on when you started. Day one was like, what's sound? How do we perceive sound? How, and it's like, oh, when you start from those basic fundamental building blocks,
right,
and then build up from there, then you have a pretty good understanding of all this, as opposed to just like, well, I learned about this thing on my own. And so it really, and there's still stuff that they taught us that I'm like, when I'm trying to troubleshoot in the studio, like I hear, like they beat signal flow into you to a point where you're like, why are we doing so much signal flow? Now I get it.
Now you get it.
All these, it wasn't long after I got out of recording school that I was like, all right, so if it's like water flowing down this way, and it's going here, so it goes to here, and then am I hearing it here? Yeah, okay, that's good. And then, it allowed me to like, figure stuff out really fast on the fly.
For sure. And it's interesting you saying that, because for me, what happened coming from the guitar world and like then more like producing and engineering is like, first when you see a DAW, it's like, it's kind of counterintuitive to understand signal flow, because you just, there is sound going in, but you have no idea because there's no cable, there's nothing. And when you go back to some analog, like even live stuff, and you go through an analog mixer and you're like, okay, so it goes here, then it goes here, then it goes here. It's like, it makes sense, but it's like the DAW makes so everything like in one package, but you don't know what's happening. Like last time I realized how the tape machine used to be the separate entity. And so then, what I mean, so you go through the mixer, then it goes to the tape machine, then you go back, you play it back from the tape machine, and you mix it back in the console. It's like, oh yeah, so Pro Tools is really everything in one. So I mean, Pro Tools or any DAW.
Right, yeah.
And it's like you have to think of the analog world to like understand and break down the DAW.
Yeah.
And then makes sense when some people argue that, well, this DAW has a certain sound because the way they sum the sound is different than blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Which is the same on analog gear.
Right. So and it's the way, okay, so this DAW is figured out, okay, if we convert this way, or if we, crunch the numbers this way, then it's going to have this particular sound as opposed to this other one who's figured out this other. And it's, the algorithm is the equivalent, the digital sort of equivalent of like, what tubes do you have in your analog gear?
It's
just that flavor to it.
Yep.
Like there's not a wrong one. There's not a right one. There's just, whatever you're using. If it works, then it works.
Yeah.
Like I know people who still rock Fruity Loops pretty hard.
Fruity Loops is a big deal. Like I was hanging with some like EDM producer stuff. It's like that's their Pro Tools kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
It's like Fruity Loops, and they argue that it has a sound.
Totally.
Right?
And there was a period where when I was doing a lot of hip hop stuff, I could hear and it's funny because, you get these, novice guys that you're working with sometimes, and they're just taking straight loops out of the Fruity Loops. And I was like, oh, this is a Fruity Loops loop. And they would go, how do you know that? I'm like, because I've heard 50 other dudes use this same loop. I hear it all the time.
Oh, no. That's crazy. That's so crazy. So, so if we go back, so you were in Texas, then you went to Arizona.
Yep.
So we actually didn't talk. So as of now, you are a recording engineer, mixing engineer, and composer, producer, or what's your focus now? Mainly
it's engineering and mixing.
Okay.
I still produce artists and that kind of stuff, but mainly I like to fiddle with the knobs. I like to put the mics up. I like to do, I like to record it and get it right, figure these things out.
And you learn recording through the traditional path of assistant in the studio, runner. Did you do the whole runner thing?
Started out as an intern. Then after my internship was over, they gave me had a weekend position come open. So I started working there on the weekends, and then working at another studio, just, as a runner, getting coffee, making sure the fridge was full, cleaning the bathrooms, doing all that stuff. Every once in a while we'd get to go in and clean out the studios, and that was super awesome. And then, little bit by little bit, you learn, I was really super lucky. The first studio I was at was a studio called Signet Sound. And I didn't realize it at the time. At the time I was like, oh, this is how studios are.
Yeah.
And what I learned after that studio closed and I started going to other studios a lot more was the place was pretty special.
Yeah.
Like the gear was top of the line. The clients were top of the line. Everything expected to be at this level that was higher than anything else.
Okay.
And so when I got to other studios, it was like,
wait,
why am I plugging into your LA2A but your 1176 is moving?
Yeah.
You start seeing that kind of stuff, and you realize oh, these guys had it. They had the formula dialed in. Our techs over there were the best that I've ever been around.
Right.
All of our assistants were really great, and they would be super cool with me. They'd be like, okay, we're about to break down the session. You want to come help us? And, I know now looking back out on it, they were just kind of it'll make it go quicker and I can go home faster.
Yeah.
But to me, it was oh my God, I get to see how these dudes that are making major records and major films, I get to see, sneak in and see how they're miking up stuff and see, okay, why are they putting that mic there? Oh, they use a condenser on that hi-hat instead of using this. And they use this. And why are they angling it this way? Oh, they're getting, and I was getting to listen, the assistants would let me listen back to tracks and solo up stuff and explain to me how they were routing stuff through the console and explain how the room was set up. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was school on top of school.
Right.
And it was, instead of the principles that my recording school taught me, this was, okay, now the building blocks of it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to show you how we put it into practice.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because I came out of recording school and I had this I know how to cut tape. I know how to record on the analog. I know how to use a big desk. And then I got there on the first day and they were syncing 3/4-inch video decks with Pro Tools, with 2 tape machines, with this, with that. And I was like, I have no idea what these people are doing. I am completely out of my element.
And you went to school for how long? That was how long?
9 months at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a full year, basically a year of school year, Yeah, the real world and the school world.
Yeah, I was like, these guys are insane at what they do. I'll never get up to this level. And then, you just piece by piece, learn a little bit here, learn a little bit here, and then before you know it, they're like, hey, we're going to throw you in to assist on this session. And you're like, okay. And you panic the entire time, and then it's over, and you're like, we're good. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Sweet. Nothing's broken. Everybody seems happy. Let's get out of here before something goes wrong. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of people argue that's the way to learn in terms of also handling people. Personality.
I see that a bunch now. Like these guys that are kind of jumping these steps are they don't know how to deal with the clients. Like I constantly have clients that tell me that, you know what I like about you? Like the room could be on fire and I look at you and you're totally calm. And it's like, oh no, I'm not calm. Inside, everything's on fire with me too.
But I just don't show it.
But I'm just like, I'm going to be cool about this. And what it teaches, once you learn that, like, because I look cool on the outside, then they're like, oh, everything's fine. Like, it's just a minor thing. It's like, oh, this mic blew up and we don't know how to, we don't have a spare. And, you're trying to like solve all this stuff. And you're like, you just have to make it work, but you also have to like, not let the clients freak out. And I see guys all the time now that like something will go wrong in a session and they go into full panic mode. And then you can feel the entire room go into panic mode around them. And it's just like, oh, no, that's not how we deal with this. Like you have, and that's a big thing. It's a very big chunk of being an engineer and being in the studio is dealing with people.
Yeah. And it's like a service. It's like they pay you for you to be here for helping them, and so they feel safe in the environment. And that's probably like 50-60% of the job. I mean, especially now with like the gear that is so affordable for everyone. What's left is I mean, obviously there's still the knowledge of engineering, but service is a big deal. I mean, isn't it like how big studio still survive? It's more like a service kind of a thing, like like I feel like sometimes like small studio and big studio, it's okay for them, but the middle ones are the ones who are struggling more because they are not big enough to be really like Capital and like Ocean Way, but they still have a certain amount of overhead and they get undercut by the small studio. And if someone has a real budget, they might go to the big one. And I mean, when did you move into LA?
2004.
So 2003. So that was still like, that was already kind of the business was changing, but that was still like Pro Tools was kind of getting up there, but that was not like what it is now.
We had one Pro Tools. We had 4 studios, I guess 3 full-time studios, and then a voiceover booth that was for video games. They had a Pro Tools rig in there.
Okay.
And we had one other Pro Tools rig for the rest of the building.
Okay. Wow.
Everything else was still analog tape.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then it was getting more like we were constantly starting to rent a second Pro Tools rig. And needed to, it happened pretty fast. But when I first, the first sessions I was on out here, it was still 2-inch tape.
Yeah, I mean, so do you think like Pro Tools started really to be like ubiquitous, like what, 2007, 2008?
I would say probably closer to like 2000. I would say right around 2004, 2005, like it became like, that's when we started like one by one, our tape machine started going upstairs and people were bringing in Pro Tools rigs more and more. And that was when I really saw like, there were still sessions being done on tape, of course, but right around then is when it was like, oh, we're doing mostly Pro Tools sessions now as opposed to even 50-50. It was like, now we're doing 80-20 of Pro Tools versus analog. That was when it was like, okay, so this is a thing. And that's when you started seeing the tape companies go out of business. And then that just propelled it even further. And
did you, what was that in that transition time? Did you have like people still using the tape to run the two track in it, like to kind of like play the mix through the tape machine and back onto the desk, or like as a printing? Like
so we've still used, when I started doing a lot of rock records and stuff, we were still using 1/2-inch tape.
Okay.
That's what we'd print our 2-inch or our 2-track mixes to, and then if we were still printing it to Pro Tools, we would run it off the Repro head or the tape machine back into Pro Tools. But and it was funny because when I first started really doing that, we would always run a 2-track mix back into Pro Tools, another one to the 1/2-inch tape machine, and then back into Pro Tools, and then you couldn't time align them perfectly, and so you would toggle between them, and they would be offset enough that you could hear like a little bit of the Pro Tools mix and then switch to the tape and hear the same spot. So you could really truly A/B off the tape versus
that's cool.
The straight DAW.
Do you still make record on tape sometimes these days?
I haven't in a really long time.
Yeah.
I did a couple things where we recorded through tape straight into Pro Tools. But that was about as close as we got to it.
Okay.
Because it's just, it's, for a 2-inch tape, you get like 15 minutes depending on what speed you're running it at. But say 15, 17 minutes, it's like $180. It's like, you know how many hard drives I could buy?
Yeah. And there was this edits possible and all that stuff.
And plus, okay, so I go to a studio and I record everything on an awesome Studer or whatever. Then what do? I have to mix it there. Yeah. I have to edit it there. Yeah. Like everything, it's basically you're locked into this room.
Yeah.
Or some other studio that's got tape machine, which is becoming fewer and far between.
Yeah. And they have to be like probably properly calibrated and probably maintained and blah, blah, blah. I was watching a video on the, that PreInternet, and they were showing like this guy called Chris Mara, I think. Chris Mara. Don't. Maybe I'm wrong on the name, but I think it's whatever. He's a nerd of tape machine, and he was showing all the tape machine that he has perfectly calibrated and aligned and blah blah blah, and it's crazy like the amount of work that it's required to maintain those machines. And he was showing it that they sound great, but they're comparing like Pro Tools mix but the amount of work that it is.
Yeah.
And it's like so much resources that you have in space.
Yeah.
The space, you just don't realize like this freaking tape machine is in the corner here.
Yeah, it's big as a jukebox. Like, it's a huge thing. And then you got to compensate for the power draw that it does, and the heat it puts off.
Yeah.
And, it's all these things. And then if it's in the room with you, and, then it's loud, it can be loud depending on what type of machine you get. Then you got to have somebody who's like, either you have, you have to get the alignment tapes for all the different ones, and so then those are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and it's just, and then you got to keep buying tape, and then you got to keep fixing stuff, and it's just a constant it's really hard. Like I crazy admire the guys who do it, but I couldn't fathom, like, you really have to love that to do it, or be really technically like proficient. Like if you're really good and you can take it apart and put it back together and have the time to do that, that's great. Like I wish I did. But so you see these guys that are really doing it, and you're like, that's pretty awesome. Like, Jack White, his whole thing is crazy analog everywhere. But even his last album he did on Pro Tools.
Oh, really?
Yeah, first album he's ever done in the box.
Oh.
I mean, they still, he used all the outboard, all his crazy outboard, and did as much as they could. But yeah, he recorded it into Pro Tools, and
wow,
I saw an interview with him where he was like, he wasn't doing it. He obviously knew Pro Tools before, but he was kind of like, how much easier this makes things. And it's like
even him saying that. Wow. Okay.
It's like, it does make it easier.
I have to check that out. Cool. So what are you working on these days? So you said video games, right?
Yep.
A lot of video games?
A lot of video games. So far this year I've worked on 16. I guess the biggest one right now that's the big talk is Death Stranding, which has it's Hideo Kojima, who did like Metal Gear and all these big games, and it's got Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead in it, and it's a huge, beautiful looking video game that I've been on for the last year and a half. And then I just got Jedi, which is the Star Wars game coming out that I just worked on, and whole bunch of stuff. I think I got 9 games that I'm working on right now that I'm still under NDA that I can't even.
Oh wow!
I can't even mention the names of them because even the names haven't been released yet.
Wow!
So it's kind of like, what are you working on? Oh, I can't say.
I can't say. So it's like blockbuster video games kind of thing.
Yeah, like big, AAA titles is what they call.
Wow!
Them.
So do the video games have like huge budget now?
Yeah, I mean some of these are 150 million.
It's movie budget territory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And make more than movies coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these games are making $700 million. Like, if they're a big seller. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, and some of these companies, it's like they'll finish a game, they release it, and then they immediately start working on either the follow-up or, another title for their company or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's literally like, you look at like the Call of Duty franchise. Mm-hmm. There's 2 teams making Call of Duty, 3 teams really making Call of Duty games.
Wow.
And they just, one will put one out one year, the other team will put one out the next year, then another team will put it out. So there's basically a new Call of Duty every year.
Oh, that's how they can do it. Okay.
So they just keep releasing it, and they just keep selling tons.
Wow.
Because they're incredible. I mean, it's incredible pieces of work, but they're just doing it. They just keep releasing and keep releasing. And,
mm-hmm. Do you play it yourself, the game?
I really picked it up a lot since I've been back. Got a, truth be told, working for Sony, I got a discount on a PlayStation.
Yeah. It's because you're a father since last year?
Yeah, last October.
So you have to watch sometimes. So you have time to play when she's sleeping?
Yeah, that's kind of about my little thing. Usually I'll put her to bed, eat some dinner, like take a shower, and then, depending on what time my call time is the next day.
Yeah.
Like while my wife's getting ready for bed or whatever, I'll sit and play 30 minutes of a game. Right now I've got like a big backlog because, super cool. They've been giving us free copies of the games as they come out.
Nice.
And so now I'm starting to get backlogged. Now I've got like 4 games that I haven't, because I don't get to play enough.
Yeah.
There's times I want to sit down and be like, I'm going to play 5 or 6 hours of video games.
Yeah.
No, I get 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops to play.
Yeah. Cool. I haven't played. Is that on PlayStation or something?
Yeah.
PlayStation?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you do the video game, like you record all the sound effects, all the
dialogue. Most of my stuff's dialogue. So I record all the dialogue for the games and then maintain all the systems for the sound designers and for the dialogue editors. So I oversee, I think it's like 16 rigs, Pro Tools rigs right now, and then 2 MOCAP stages and a recording studio.
Wow.
So any audio that goes on in any of those 3 studios, I usually record the dialogue for it.
Wow. So you have professional actors coming in?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes huge names, sometimes they're just huge in the video game world. Sometimes they're huge in animation. Like, we had one of the main characters from Dragon Ball Z in the other day, and it's like, I didn't know who he was because I don't watch Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
But some of the other people that were around, they're like, oh my God, that's the guy from Dragon Ball Z.
Wow. That's fun.
But they're all so good at it. And they, it's a different, some of these mocap actors it's a different skill set than like a regular screen actor, because it's a lot of make-believe.
Yeah.
Like when you're on a movie set, if you're supposed to be sitting in a living room, you're sitting in a set that looks like a living room.
Yeah.
When you're on the mocap stage, it might just be Apple boxes sitting around with stuff with dots on it that you can interact with.
So the mocap, can you maybe explain a little bit what it is? It's like the fake thing, like with it like a green screen kind of a thing.
So basically, all the actors wear these suits that have markers all over them, so little dots all over.
Yeah. So they can compute. Yeah.
Yep. So the computer renders it, and then we also capture facial data. So we've got cameras in front of their faces, so that way we can capture any facial movement, tick, cheek lift, nose twitch, any facial blinks, smiles. Everything's rendered, so it's mind-blowing, the data that you're getting off these, and the technology. The first time I ever did a video game was the Godfather video game, which was way back.
I think I played that video game.
Yeah, it was for like PlayStation 2 or something.
Yeah.
And I remember the guys coming down because it was Electronic Arts that did it. So I remember the guys coming down and being like, "Oh my God, look at this! We can actually track them when they're moving." A wire frame of them, so you could see like a stick figure basically moving the way this person was doing it. Now, when we're on the mocap stage, I look up at a monitor and I can see the actors in their character models on a screen, rendered into the environment that they're in, live while it's all happening. Wow. So it's not like, well, I don't know. What will this look like when he climbs through this window, or what will it look like when he jumps over this rock, or whatever. I'm just watching you do it.
Whoa, that's amazing. So, my nerdy I want to ask, so what's the processing power behind it? What's computer? Is that like a big server? So
we've got multiple computers. Basically they offload. Those guys on the mocap stage are mind-blowing techie guys, and it's awesome to watch. But they run this software called Motion Builder, and then it's all done in this Unreal Engine, and it's just rendered. I mean, it's multiple computers all working together to do all this processing, because we've got a ton of cameras in this. So when they walk into this little square on the floor, we have a 40 by 40 foot mocap stage, and when they walk into the little taped off square on the room, then all of a sudden they are in the environment.
Wow.
They are live, and we can see every move they do. Wow. And every movement they make. Like, if they're in between takes scratching their nose, and it's whatever character on screen, I can see that character scratching their nose. It's mind blowing.
Wow, that's amazing. Just out of curiosity, is it Mac or PC?
So that stuff that they're doing on PCs.
Okay. You think the new Mac Pro is gonna somehow get his way back in? Because that's what they were talking about, those like crazy Mac Pro. That's kind of like for a big company like this, because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Do you think
I don't know, because all the software that they use is all built on a Windows backbone.
I see.
So it's kind of like, well, we could, but then we'd have to reskin all this stuff and figure all this out. So
did Mac used to be more present like a couple of years ago?
It's still really big for like video editors and stuff like that, and definitely in the audio world, it's king.
Yeah.
But it's not so much on the tech side. The tech folks like their Windows computers because they can customize. They can customize it. They can build it. They can hack into it and do whatever they need to. Like it's not as locked down. So it's there's more. Oh, we need more powerful video cards. There's a whole row at Fry's of way powerful video cards that you can get for it. Yeah. Mac, it's like, I need a new video card. Yeah. All right, you have one of three choices. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. So they like
Yeah, they need to be like perfectly like customizable, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
So my to finish on the nerdy side, because I'm running an ebook on. So you saw the first one that I sent you. Yeah. So I'm already on the second one. It's all about backups, because I'm like hearing so many people are just like, oh, we talked about that one time, I remember, but like, oh yeah, I'm making my new record. Cool. Do you have a backup of it? Oh no, it's theirs on the computer. It's like, okay, that if that stuff is for whatever reason stopped working, it's like it's gone. That's it, right? So I want to ask you how it is at Sony, the whole backup thing.
So I record on the server.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And our
like, was it Gigabyte Ethernet?
Gigabit. Yeah. So I literally get there in the mornings, and when I launch the computer, I log into our server. It mounts as a drive. I literally can record on it, close the session, and then just send a Slack message to the editor upstairs or whoever's editing it and go, hey, just finish this scene. And they'll go, cool, I'm working on it. And they just open up and start working on it. Yeah. So it's I mean, they've got for that, it's pretty awesome. The server room, like I've only been outside the glass of it and stared through it, but it's like you see on like TV shows where it's rows and rows of servers. Yeah. It's incredible.
So they have probably like some tech people who are just there to maintain
full IT team just to keep for sure everything up and running.
That's crazy. Yeah, I went to when was that? That was like a month ago. not 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I almost bought a booth from someone who was working at Warner. And the guy was like, that was at night, so he showed me like a little bit the building. And that was where there's the Friends fountain, that one. And then he showed me the server room and stuff. It's like crazy. It's like you open the door.
Yeah, and it's ice cold in there.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like they keep it like at like probably like 60 something or whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's same thing. They have. So he's doing more like this guy was doing more like trailer scoring kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
So, but only trailer basically.
Yeah, there's guys
like
that
1 minute, 2 minutes.
All they do is trailers. That's it.
And he has the Mac Pro in the room, and surprisingly enough, the room was not that treated in terms of acoustic panels. I was actually okay. I would expect the perfectly treated room, but not really.
No.
But yeah, the computer is like in the room, but it's straight. I think the drives are actually not even in the room. They are reading off the server. Yeah. That makes sense.
Because then you're never. Literally, I was talking to our IT guys who were like really incredible at this, and I was like, what would happen if someone accidentally hit delete?
Yeah.
Like, not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Most of the people that we work with are fairly bright and fairly tech savvy. So, but what would happen if someone, hit the wrong key? And it would be like, and they're like, oh no, we can back up. Like, we can get you back to as far as like 5 days ago.
Wow.
Like, we can restore everything back 5 days.
Wow.
And it's like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, what if something happens to our servers here? Oh, well, we have 3 studios in California. We have one up north near San Francisco. We have one in San Diego, and then we have ours.
Okay, so
they mirror them to all the sites. So we have a mirror of the other 2's on ours, and they have it on theirs, and that way, no matter what happens, nothing ever gets lost. And those mirrors update every night.
Of course.
So it's pretty incredible.
Do they have like cloud backup on top of that?
No, because everything's so locked down that it's basically a bored out tunnel straight one room to one room. That's it. Like everything that we do, because there's such high security.
Yeah. Do you see like the people coming for like? Do they sometimes come with actually a case for the drive and they put it in a safe box or something? No, there's none of that.
I've never seen them. Like they might. I have never asked. Like I know we have like a big archive dump because it's like, okay, this game's been out for a year. We clearly don't need it anymore, but we're not going to delete it.
Yeah.
So then they'll do a big archive dump and put it on the archive. And then, if something comes up where it's like, hey, you know what? We're looking for this sound effect. We want to like reference it for something, and it was off this game. And it's like, okay, well, cool. We'll talk to the IT guys, and they can literally log you into the archive, and you can just reach it down.
Oh, wow.
Pull it out.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good reason to archive.
Yeah.
I was talking about that with a friend last time, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, at that level, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I was talking to, I don't know if you met him last time. Emir is like this composer, film composer. He worked on like Marvel, the last Marvel who came in February. Oh no, Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he's doing a lot of big movie stuff, and he was telling me that before internet, at the end of the day, he would work on stuff, and then there was a security guard who would have he would stay all day in front of the door, and then eventually there would be like some security company would take the drive and take it to another location, because at the end of his day, he has to give the data to the people to lock it in a safe place or something, because no internet. And he was telling me that on the last movie he was working on, he could not have his computer connected to the internet.
Yeah.
That would be in his contract.
Everything has to be firewalled off or air gapped where you're not on the internet.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And even like when I get, when I do shows or whatever, you would, some of them they'll deliver like via Dropbox or whatever, but a ton of them, and certain companies are more crazy about it than others.
Yeah.
But there would be times where they'd be, still to this day, I would get calls saying, hey, are you going to be home at like 6 tonight? We need to have a courier drop off the drive. and they would drop off a drive at my house that has a keypad on it.
Oh, wow.
With a safe, keypad number to unlock it.
Uh-huh.
So you plug it in your computer and nothing happens. And then you type in, then they would send you a, link with the code, and then you put in your code. And
is it the kind of code that only works for like a certain amount of time?
some of them do. Some of them have the rollover codes, but some of them are just,
Wow.
vaulted things.
That's some crazy security stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen the same level of security for music, for like album?
It's funny. There's certain artists that I work with that were super like cautious about it, and then there was other artists that would just like show up at the studio and be like, "Here's my drive. All right, we're gonna go out and eat. We'll be back in a couple hours." And
So you could totally like,
if you wanted to, you could have walked out of there with their entire album. Like, and then they're just like, I worked on a record that was went on to be a pretty big record, and they showed up and the drive had duct tape around it, and I'm like. What? And they're like, yeah, the drive's going bad. Like, we should probably get another drive. And I'm like, what happens if this goes down? It's like, we have a couple songs on one dude's computer and a couple songs on another. And I'm like, this is a nightmare scenario for me.
wow. You're talking about label stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Whoa. Well, I wonder if the label would, maybe the label, they don't even know.
Sometimes I don't think they do.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was funny because that one, like, we had trouble because the case was going out. So we had trouble getting the drive to mount and everything. And the artist showed up and he blew up and he was like, we're making a huge record. Why is a $200 hard drive our sticking point?
Yeah.
I'm like, I totally get it. Like,
whoa.
This is not on me. Like, you guys showed up with this, like, I can't. I'm just here to engineer their vocals.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
But it's crazy. Like,
yeah. It's just...
my whole thing is you've got to have copies of it. You've got to have backups of it. I run every drive that I have in my house has an exact duplicate of it, and then the exact the duplicate gets no deletions.
Yeah, you get the safety net thing.
So I
on
do the safety net,
CCC.
or just tell like with Sync Pro, don't delete anything.
Yeah.
That way it's always there, and then my backups get archived to our network system in the house. So I've got every computer, every drive, everything in the entire house all backed up to a network system.
Yeah.
So that way, if anything goes horribly wrong, if there was a natural disaster and we had to get out of the house, I could literally walk by on my way to the front door,
just get the
grab
drive,
the network drive, and I have everything in the house and not have to worry about a thing.
Are you still doing cloud backup? Because I know that you got a story for me with Dropbox that they messed up a long time ago. They messed up some of your backups, right? Like they deleted stuff.
Yeah, well, the artist did.
They
didn't understand what was happening with Dropbox. They were just like, oh, I don't need this on my computer. Jeremy's got it.
And that was a shared folder.
And it was a shared folder, and they deleted it. And it was prior. Now Dropbox has a thing where it's like, do you want to delete this for you or delete this for everyone?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, true. They have that.
But before they had that, like you had to understand how it worked.
Yeah.
And people didn't. So they would be like, oh, well, I'm just using the free Dropbox and you just dropped 20 gigs worth of stuff on my Dropbox.
Yeah.
I had to delete it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just deleted your project.
Yeah.
And it's like, luckily Dropbox always had a thing to it. But, I fell really, really early in my career. I fell in that like, well, I have it on a hard drive. It won't happen to me. It'll happen to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then just finishing up final mixes on a record. Get up and have dinner. Come back, sit back down. Drive's gone.
Yeah.
Lost the entire record. We started over.
Like you started over.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way.
Yeah.
And that's for some reason I'm trying to communicate that to others. Like, that if you lose that stuff, it's like it's gone. And it's like, what, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is. And let's say it's not even a money situation. It's time, that's all the energy you put in it. And then if you have money on top of that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to make copies of it. I think it doesn't register
Yeah, and a lot of people fall into that, like, well, it won't happen to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, all it takes is for you to, like, if you've got it in your bag, for you to throw your bag down in your back seat too hard.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Done.
I have a list on my ebook I'm writing, and like I have the list of all the possibilities I'm trying to, and it's like it goes from obviously the mechanical failure.
Sure.
That's like one thing, but it's like it goes from dropping your computer or whatever. Although I guess with SSDs now it's a little bit better. But car accident, like you could get like car being stolen.
Yep.
What was the other? Oh, last time that was like 6 months ago. I come to the studio and then the roof was leaking, and right away I was like, oh my gosh, the server, like, because I have my all my stuff here, and luckily the roof was not leaking. Here was like a little bit, but like couple inches away, and like drops everything on the server. All my backups are gone. I mean, I have a cloud too, so I'm good. But that's like in LA with all those roof leaking because they get baked during the summer, and then when it rains, it's just like, it's super quick. Or like a pipe like explode or surge or whatever. It's actually, I mean, and on top of that, we're into earthquake territory. But I almost feel like, the earthquake, I guess, but I feel like the whole like pipes or like, getting stolen.
Yeah, especially we've been having all these power outages lately.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
You get, if you don't have your stuff on a good surge protector, like your house, power goes out, comes back on, goes back out, comes back on.
Gone.
Everything's gone.
Gone. Yeah, that's the idea. What drove me to do that trying to talk about that on the ebook and stuff, is this thing that your whole life is gone.
Yeah.
And that thing has everything. And I always take the example of pictures, because for some reason the pictures register more.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all your, like, and if you start talking about the kids' picture.
Totally.
Right? I mean, now that, you're probably like, okay, I'm going to have like copies of
my
that.
phone, when I take a picture of it, backs up my picture to my Dropbox. It backs it up to my Google Drive. And then once a month, I go in and back it up to my Mac photos.
That's crazy.
And it's
but that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And the photo, I think, are a great example of like something that is like only your life. And I guess the record, you can retrack it.
Sure.
But
you might not have the same ideas, or you might not have the same like magic, accidental. Sometimes you have accidental stuff happen in the studio.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh man, this gear's not acting right, but it's doing this really cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just do it. Let's record this little piece right now.
Yeah.
That's gone. You can't recreate. It's just like.
But anyway, let's jump on. Go back to music. So we met at Firehouse.
Yep.
Through Krista.
Yep.
Because you work with her. Shout out to Krista.
Yeah.
She was working with you a long time ago, right?
Yeah, the first studio I ever worked at.
And we reconnected. You guys reconnected randomly because we were in Pasadena at the music school and we were looking for a studio, and my friend Michael was working there, was assisting, right? He was interning, yes.
Yeah.
And he said, stop by the studio, blah, blah, blah. And then we walk in and it's like, I don't know you, but Krista said, Jeremy?
Yeah, I was sitting in the control room and I had the back doors open to the live room, and I saw you guys walk by and I was like, oh my God, that looks just like Krista. And then you guys came around and to see the control room, and I was like, oh my God, it is.
Yeah.
Because it had been like, maybe 5 years.
5 years,
something like that at that point.
Such a small world.
It really is.
Yeah. So what interesting session did you do like that at Firehouse? What was the most amazing session? Like, it was a lot of strings, right? Like a lot
of film score stuff. A lot of we did all the music for like Whiplash there.
Let's talk about that. So how was that?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And at the time, nobody knew what it was going to be. It was just, they had a short that came out at Sundance, did really great. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, we're going to make it a full-length movie. And we started doing it, and it was like, oh, this is going to be a cool movie. I don't think I'm going to like this. And then, who knew it was going to be up for Academy Awards?
Yeah.
Like, you just never know.
But you never know.
And then...
What did you do on that one?
So I actually ran Pro Tools for all the, all the band recording scenes.
Wow.
So like when they're in the rehearsal rooms and even the score stuff for that one.
And that was recorded at Firehouse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did they track everything live or?
Yep.
Wow.
Everybody was
cool.
Everybody was live in the room together. It was fun.
Nice. That's a cool credit.
Yeah.
That's a cool credit. And so I was checking on your biography. How was it to work with John Mayer?
It was cool. I did mostly that. A lot of that stuff was mixing stuff. So I only got to meet him, I think, twice.
And that was on the Where the Light Is, right? On the live recording, right?
Yeah. So I did the first one I did with him was the Continuum Special Edition. So I did like a live second disc when they reissued it.
Oh, okay.
So we did all the live mixes for that second disc, and then after that it was, I think it's Austin City Limits performance.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we mixed that, and then we did the Where the Light Is record after that.
So you mixed the live recording?
I didn't mix it. I was just assisting on
Assisting,
it.
Okay. And how was the performance? Like, that's pretty amazing to hear the performance, like, recorded. Like, you could solo the track, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
It was awesome. It was kind of like really eye-opening for some of that stuff, because it's like, that's when I started learning that, like, you see all these artists with like 12 amps on stage, and you're like, that's amazing. And then turns out none of them are even real.
Yeah.
It's, it's just a false front that they're using. Their amps are in an ISO box in the back. Yeah. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff where I learned that.
Yeah,
like,
you learn the show, and there is the recording.
Yeah. And so it's like, no wonder his guitar sounds so good live every night. It's basically in a studio backstage with perfectly mic'd and can be shot, and it's like, that's why this stuff sounds so good.
Was there any, if you can say, was there any overdub on that record, or
nope.
No? It was really like
100%. 100% what they played is what they got.
That's cool, but really well recorded.
Yeah, it was Ed Cherney.
Oh yeah, that's right. And didn't you say you had a truck in the back of the?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I guess like through like some Neve preamp or something. Yeah,
I don't remember what he said they had in the truck at this point. It was so long ago.
And that was a 3 nights performance, right? 3 days in a row or something?
Yes.
Or 2 days?
2 days.
2 days. 2 days, yes, 2 days. So they probably record both of it.
Yep.
And pick the best performances.
Yep. I think it was all ended up being one night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a great DVD, actually. Even the way it was laid out, like with the acoustic.
Yeah, him opening for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a John Mayer movie.
And his, his trio is still.
It's killing.
They're still so good. After we did that, I got to assist for this guy Don Smith, who mixed everybody, and he did Rolling Stones and Stevie Nicks and everybody. And I got to work with him on Steve Jordan, the drummer for the trio. He and his wife have a band.
Oh, cool.
And I got to work with him on that, and I was just like, dude, you're the guy from the John Mayer trio. And he's like, dude, I've been from a lot more than that.
Right.
It's like, I know, but that's that's the thing I just finished on. Yeah. So that's why.
He's been around for a while.
Oh, he's done everything. Yeah. I mean, the guy is prolific.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great record. And you work also with Marilyn Manson.
I did a record at his house.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was
how was that?
It was interesting. Like he's single-handedly the smartest guy I've ever been in a room with. Like,
seems like everyone is saying that he's like super smart guy.
So smart. Like there was nothing that like you would start talking about that he couldn't chime in like super intelligently about. Like you would start talking about books and he would talk about it, and like he introduced me to like some like really stuff that I was like, I would have never found this in a million years. Right. Music, like off the wall stuff, and it was
so like deep person.
Yeah, super deep, super smart, super like, but like a lot of artists, he had his demons. And so he was going through a little bit of a rough patch there. And
when was that?
That was 2007, 2008, something like that. Okay. No, maybe a little bit later than that.
Which record was it?
It was The High End of Low.
Okay.
So, not one of his bigger ones.
The name of the record seems that there are some demons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you record so all the record was made at home? Like he had his own rig there or his own setup?
So basically we had a studio, a control room in the basement. We had a room off to the side of it that had guitar amps and bass amps and everything that we just had like cables run so we could just plug into whatever amp we wanted to, and then they could stand in the control room with us and play.
Did he build the studio for this record?
No, it was literally, it really was just a room in his house that we put.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like super sound treated. It was just like...
It was home studio.
It was home studio. But like, obviously, home studioing, not on, on a home studio budget. Like, it was like he had a HD rig.
Yeah.
He had brand new computer in there. Everything was tweaked and working, and
wow.
It was interesting. There was a lot of like weird nights, like because we would start at like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of
and then work till like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Okay, so totally artist.
Totally, yeah. And it'd be like some nights we wouldn't get anything done.
Really?
Some nights we would just, there'd be some nights like he would be like, I'm just not into it. I'm not feeling it, and he would just go back up to his room and be like, cool, we're going home.
Wow.
Like some nights he would be like one night he was like, hey. I want to show you guys some like tour videos and stuff, and
some what?
Like tour videos and stuff. And I was like super into this because I'm like, I was a big fan. Like before I ever got to meet him. Like, and the rest of the band was like, we're out, we're going home. We've seen it. We were there. So I sat he and I went to drive through at Taco Bell, and then sat on his couch and ate Taco Bell and watched his home recordings of these like backstage at tour and like on the bus and like everything. And it was like, this is like, because, it's an artist that I had his posters on my wall before this. To be like sitting with him telling me about what was happening. It was my mind, like inside my brain was just like shaking. I just couldn't understand, like, how did I come from traveling, 6 hours to go see this guy play a live show, to having keys to his house and sitting on his couch watching TV with him
and eating Taco Bell.
Like it was really like it still happens to this day. Like sometimes I'll be in a room with somebody, I'm like, how am I in a room with this person?
That's your LA moment. So what you are mentioning Marilyn Manson as your influences. What are your main influences? So Marilyn Manson.
I loved Manson growing up. I would say like the big two for me in my world were 9 Inch Nails and The Cure. Okay. So those two, and then I started getting in, a little bit later got into, more punk rock stuff, like super into SoCal punk. Like, okay, so I've kind of gone through these things. Like
Sum 41.
Face to Face was my favorite.
Okay, well, they're Canadian actually, right?
No, they're from Orange County.
Sum 41?
Oh, Sum 41's Canadian.
Canadian. Blink 182, they're
American.
San Diego, right? Or
I think
Tom DeLonge?
I think one of them's from San Diego.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which is funny because he's into... I watched a Joe Rogan interview, and he's into UFOs and crazy.
Super into UFOs.
I was like, he's actually... I mean, he was talking about stuff like he's actually working with the government or something, like on the podcast. It's weird. Like, he's so into it. And then it makes sense because one of the songs is called Does Alien Exist?
Right.
On that record, Animal of the States.
Right.
And now it's like, I'm real. Oh, okay.
And then if you listen to like the Angels and Airwaves, which is his breakoff stuff, it's all like there's so much alien talk.
Yeah. Which is a cool band actually.
Yeah.
I really like them. The sound is pretty nice. And so that's your main influence. So more on the heavy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Country music, being from Texas, is always there. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't get into it until much later in life, but I love a film score. Like, there's just something about it, especially now that I've worked on so many of them. Like, you see what goes into it, and it's what they do with this stuff, like, is incredible.
Yeah, like they play the song twice, and that's done.
It's done. Yeah. And it's like, you gotta think about these composers. They see this video for the first time, and they're like, okay, so I think this should be this, and I think these instruments should be involved in it. I think it should be at this tempo to match the video cuts, and it's so much goes into like from start to finish. It's like, here's a video clip, make the music perfect for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And especially like, I was working with composers, guy Blake Neely, who does Arrow and Flash and Supergirl and, so many TV shows, Riverdale and all that. And so they're turning out, I think they were, last year when we were working together a ton, we were doing 9 shows a week.
Whoa.
And it's like, that's a lot. I mean, he's got a team, an incredible team around him that helps. And some of them write, like, okay, this composer writes for all of Supergirl now. And so, he did a pretty good job but he kind of still has to oversee everything. And it's like, you're turning out 9 hours of music a week. And we were recording 2 of them last year with a full orchestra.
Wow.
So you're having to come up with 9 hours of music a week, plus 2 hours of that. You have to get it all done, get the charts made off of it, get them all, everything printed up, taped, binded, ready to go to the studio, record it, mix it.
Wow.
Print it off and get it to the dub mixers, and it's like, you have like a 5-day turnaround.
Yeah. It's
mind-blowing.
Yeah. And also the level of proficiency from everyone involved. Yeah. And as a recording engineer, it's like, that's when you need to stay calm because you have 50, 60 musicians there. Yeah. It's like, has to be like, so for orchestra session, how much in advance do you come to the studio to prep the whole room? Is that the day before?
Depends on how big it is.
Okay.
Like if it's a smaller one, and it depends on the studio too.
Right.
Like, if you're going to like a Warner Brothers or something like that, those guys are dialed in. They know that room in and out. So it's like, unless you're bringing something really absurd or trying to do something really absurd, you can send the stuff over to them and they're like, it'll be ready when you walk in the door. They are dialed in. But some of the other ones, you go in the day before, the night before, and get everything set up. And then sometimes it's like you go spend the entire day before trying to like figure out logistics of, okay, well, we've got to do this, but then we've got to switch over to percussion. But then we've got the next morning, we've got to get back to the orchestra. So we can't, because we're doing the percussion session separate, we can't tear down the orchestra stuff, but you want to get a good sound out of it. So you got to figure out like all these like logistic things happening.
And those guys are on the clock because they are union. And there's like a block of 3 hours, right? Isn't it like kind of like 3 hours and then it goes overtime or something? Isn't it like some different?
I was always so weird with all those like.
But it's like, it's not like the indie band was just whatever. It's like we are here. No, it's like
it's like if you say you're going to start at 10 o'clock, when the clock turns 10 o'clock, the composer steps on the podium and goes, "Good morning. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. We're going to start with Q1M2. Boom, everybody opens their books, switches, pulls their sheet music, whatever they've got in front of them. 1M2's up on the thing. All right. We're going to go do playback. Check your headphones. Everybody cool? Rocking. Let's go. Here comes a click. Give me 8 clicks to bar 1. Yeah. Boom, you're going.
And everyone is on headphones, right? So it's not like one is on headphones or like the conductor is on headphone and then he's guiding everyone. Can they do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's been some where, like, there's sometimes where, like I did this show that's about to premiere on Netflix called Green Eggs and Ham. And it's a Dr. Seuss thing. And the composer for it's David Newman, who's part of the Newman family composers. And he's awesome. The dude is like, he's one of those like next level, like musician brain kind of guys. And so there would be times where he'd be like, okay, so here we're going to cut the click out. And I just want the orchestra to follow me free. And but then I wanted to come back in here. And then I want, like little like tricks where it's like, okay, we're going to drop out here and we're going to do this and you follow me. And you can always tell, like, it's really interesting to watch some of these composers because some of them you see and you can tell like they're out there waving their arms and you can see the musicians are not following them at all because like they'll stop and the musicians will keep playing. And then there's other composers that you'll see out on the stand that as soon as they put their hands down, the musicians stop. And it's because there's just certain composers and conductors, sometimes they're not even the composers that are on the conductor's podium, that just have the way of like really getting the orchestra to dial into them. And then that's what it becomes. Like, sometimes I've even had composers that are like, feed me, click, nobody else.
Wow.
If they don't follow me, we'll know immediately.
Wow.
And it's like,
Interesting.
You got to stay on it.
Interesting.
It's really interesting to see that. And these players are so mind-blowingly good.
Yeah. Do they do the player or always the same? Or because in my understanding it's more like a groups, like the violin section. It's like there's one that is like leading the violin section. Isn't it kind of like a work?
Yeah, you usually have like a lead for each section kind of thing. And then, or one person particular who speaks for the orchestra.
Yeah.
So it's like if you have questions, you tell that guy and then he relays it. So that way there's not, if there's a 90-piece orchestra and everybody's shouting out their demands, then it just becomes a sea of noise.
Yes.
And so you need that person who's like locked and loaded.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a MD.
Right.
MD for
totally.
Yeah, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So which studio in LA can still accommodate that kind of a 90-piece orchestra?
So Warner Brothers, Sony.
Capitol?
I don't think Capitol you could do it. Well, Capitol, if you took down the walls between A and B, you probably could.
Okay.
But
East-West, maybe?
East-West, I don't know that you get 90 in there. That'd be like pretty on top of each other.
Yeah.
Like I think they can do 65 or so.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I'm sure they've done it once or twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest I've ever done at East West was, I think 45 or something like that.
Yeah.
45 or 50. It's still pretty big.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we capped out at Firehouse at 30.
Yeah.
And that was like players on top of players.
Yeah.
Like,
where did they put all their stuff?
We usually had them line it on the walls or like stick it out in the hallway behind the main tracking room there.
Oh, okay. Is this like a booth that become like the drum room become the...
Sometimes, yeah. But usually that was like the piano's tucked away in there.
Yeah.
So you gotta put the piano out of the way to make sure, but then still people would put stuff in front of the piano and stuff like that.
And that studio was beautiful. I'm so happy that we were able to like be the last band to track live in that stuff.
I think
right?
you guys, we were the last full band to track.
Full band, yeah. That was such a trip, and this studio was beautiful.
It was awesome, and it was like really well dialed in, and like the headphone systems were dialed in, all the gear was great working shape, like everything was awesome. Like
one last piece on gear. So, what's your favorite gear when it comes to like I don't know microphones? It depends on the person.
It depends on what you're using it for.
It's the stupidest question.
It's so hard to say because there's like you always want to have a SM57 around.
Yeah.
Because it can use it for so many things.
Yeah.
And it's so versatile. And so it's there's that, and then there's like sure would be nice to have a LCR of M50s.
Yeah.
Like those are incredible.
Yeah.
And, so everything's kind of got its thing. Like I've been tracking with the Slate mic a ton lately, and I love the way it sounds. I have my blue baby bottle, and love that thing.
That's the black one, right? Is it black?
It's like super dark blue.
Yeah, dark blue. Yeah. That one is nice.
And it's great. That was the first like pro mic I ever got.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because I was like, I got it and I got the Summit preamp to go with it.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I haven't tried those yet.
Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Because mine's got a solid state out and it's also got a tube output on it. And it's also got a tube saturation so you can actually overdrive the tube.
Nice.
Without clipping the audio.
Yeah. That's cool.
And I got those two. And I remember I was pretty broke at the time and the studio that I was working for had just closed. But I had like 2 records that I was trying to finish and was going to do it all at my apartment. So I remember I went and I spent like it was like $500 for the mic, and then like I think I spent another $500 on the preamp. And I was like, I walked out and I just sat in the car and I was like, what did I just do?
Yeah.
I just spent $1,000 on 2 pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
Like, and I just lost my job. What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I thinking?
Yeah.
And it was like, luckily, I got, I was, at that point, I was just about to start a new job.
Okay.
So I didn't feel quite as bad, but I was, I still was just, I was going back to being a runner. I'd gotten up to an assistant, now I'm back to a runner, which means I wasn't making a ton of money, which means,
be careful,
I had to be super careful with my money, and then I just went out. So I remember I've had that twice in my life where I sat in the parking lot and was like, I think I should take this back in.
Yeah, it's like that feeling is like the guilt is like, why did I do that? Do I really need that?
What am I thinking? Who do I think I am to just go in there and drop this kind of money? In the long run, it's, the first record I finished with that mic and preamp paid for it.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was just like, what have you done? You are out of your mind.
I know. Yeah. Those blues, I mean, they are for the price they are. They're just
incredible.
They're a little bit, sometimes on the top, I feel a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
And, but that's the old model. One of my friends gave it to me. Those 2, he had used to do recording back in Canada, and then he stopped doing audio. And I asked him one time, hey, can I borrow those mic or something? And it's like this deal with it's undefinitely loaned,
Right.
It's like, you have it basically, but it's not official. But those ones were, I think he bought them in 2007.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of that was kind of early on.
Totally.
They changed now. I think now they have a pattern.
A pad on
the pad. Yeah. So that's the early on version. But I mean, they're working fine,
Yeah, I've used mine for.
I did that on electric guitar. Works.
Totally, yeah. I've used mine on snare.
Oh, on snare.
Just a little back on a snare. Awesome.
Nice.
Used it on tons of vocals, acoustic guitars. When you only have one really nice mic, you use it on everything.
On everything.
I threw it in front of. Because I've done a lot of stupid recordings in my time. I was finishing up a band that needed horns on it. And, we had zero budget for the record.
Yeah.
And I didn't have access to a studio at the time.
Yeah.
So my apartment, I blanketed up my bedroom and ran cabling from the living room, which is where my rig was.
Yeah.
And used my blue mic and a couple other mics that I'd borrowed and set them up, and we started, and it was crazy. I don't know how we didn't get kicked out of the apartment, because I started tracking horns at 8:30 at night, and it was a horn trio.
Oh!
And we recorded until 1:15 in the morning.
Wait a minute, you were able even to go up to 1:15 in the morning?
1:15 in the morning, we finished recording the horns.
No one complained?
No, we were crazy lucky. The dudes below us, we had met and were on good terms with, and they were super night owls, and they were super cool.
Okay.
And we only had one person on the side of us that my bedroom was. And he was a guitarist who played live.
So he was out.
So he was out that night playing a gig. So literally, they were leaving, and he was wheeling his amp in coming home. And it was
whoa.
Awesome.
Wow, that was some lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Oh, yeah. And we did stupid. I did a full percussion, big percussion rig there at my house at 10 o'clock at night. Because I was going whenever I got off from the studio.
Yeah.
So I'd start at 10:30 at night recording percussion and start recording vocals at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Just whenever you can fit it in.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense in a way. I mean, I guess you could do the same during the day. If people go to work from 9 to 5.
Yeah. You just find these windows.
Yeah.
And luckily, most of our building was
somehow quiet.
It was quiet enough that,
Yeah.
I don't know how we didn't get in trouble with that horn session. Because, they were and they were not playing soft, dude.
No,
it was,
they were
hard, they were blowing.
Yeah. I had
a lot of stab stuff.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun, dun.
That's loud.
Yeah.
I did that session on that song that I worked on. We had horns. She wanted to have a horn section 3, trombone, trombone, trumpet, and sax. Her name is Laken. She's great. And she asked me, "Can we do horns here?" I said, "Yeah, too small. Yeah. It's just too loud. It's just like it's right there. Like I could have fit them here,
totally.
But it's like, nah, it's too much. It's like on headphones, and nah, it drives you crazy." We went to another studio on Melrose, and he had a control room separated, and that was fine. But even his control room was not isolated to the point that it was not totally quiet.
Right.
It was okay. But it's like, man, 2 or 3 hours with the horns, like blasting next to you, you go crazy.
Oh yeah, they're so loud. Like, I don't know how we didn't get in trouble for
those
that.
guys were really good. They are called the Regiment Horns.
Oh,
they
yeah.
have you know them?
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah,
they are really good. They work with I think Justin Timberlake and Justin Timberlake. I think they're always touring and so they're tight, like nice. But same thing, stabs and like it's in your face. That trombone is like that's loud.
Yeah.
That's freaking and the space that it needs the space.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like trumpet, they keep it close.
Yeah.
But with a trombone, they need room for that slide to go out and back, and then you get like to a baritone trombone, which is even bigger throw.
Yeah.
And it's like you got to have a lot of room.
I don't think I would be able to fit them in my booth. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
You have to come in with a micro trombone.
Micro trombone, yeah, right. And but yeah, so it's interesting. I was talking so I'm waiting for the booth. We were talking about it, and the guy was saying that he's doing all those voiceover, and he was telling me that all the actors they need the voiceover actor they need like super quiet stuff.
Yeah, it has to be
super quiet. Yeah, because
otherwise it's unusable.
Yeah, and I was asking. I knew that lady from one of the church I play. She's doing voiceover professionally, and she doesn't have a booth, but she does a lot of like jingles and stuff like this. And I said, "Well, where do you record?" "Well, at home I have a little setup, and my apartment is quiet enough." But I said, "Do you do audiobooks?" And she said, "No, because it's too. It needs to be there's certain standard apparently, right? You can probably like
absolutely. I've done probably 12 or 14 audiobooks, and it's got to be silent. Like even when you're recording audiobooks, a lot of the times you still wear headphones because you've got to be super dialed in. Like you mean
you wear headphones?
Yeah, in the control room I would wear headphones because I had to
for the
hear
details.
Every little nuance. Like, you know what? I know you're not banging your pencil or anything, but when you're sitting there rubbing your pencil, all I can hear is this shh, and you don't notice that kind of thing. And especially, I'm doing that a lot with dialogue.
Dialogue, yeah, same thing.
Like just today I had an actor who was delivering a line and he was supposed to deliver it over his shoulder. Like he's talking to someone like, in the back seat kind of thing. And so he would turn around to do it. But when he would do it, he would lift his shoulder a little bit. So he was delivering the line kind of into his shoulder. And it was causing... You could just hear like the comb filtering happen on the mics. Because we have the mics on his forehead.
Oh.
And so he would do that, and it would just create this little... And so it's like, you got to watch it when you do that. So he'd go, okay. So then he would
actually
turn his body.
But you wouldn't have heard that if you wouldn't be for the headphones.
Well, for this studio, we keep it fairly, loud enough that we can hear these kind of things.
The stuff, yeah.
But for the audiobooks, it's got to be, because you got to think about it. For audiobooks especially, most of that's listened to in headphones.
Yeah, earbuds. Yeah.
Like most people are listening to the audiobook when they're on their walk or they're out, whatever. Some people listen to them in the cars, and, if that was the case, you could probably get away with more. But,
still.
For most people that are listening, you don't want, to record an entire audiobook and then realize, there's been this, 2K flutter that's been happening in the background, or this,
or the AC running, or whatever.
You didn't notice it because the AC's running in the control room, and you're thinking, it's the one in the control room.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not. It's the one
in the
in the booth, right, blowing on the microphone. So you have to check all that, and you have to be super dialed in with it. And so, a lot of times for those audiobooks, I would wear headphones because
that makes sense.
I would, even with someone next to me, if they're taking notes and they're going, then I'm like, am I hearing that in there?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think about that. With music, we are kind of lucky. We can get away with a lot, actually.
Oh, you can hide so much stuff in the track. It's
the bleed. That's the sound.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get away with it. But for like dialogue stuff, it's got to be in a book, audiobook and stuff like that. It's got to be so pristine.
Yeah.
And especially like, you know, stuff that I didn't think about when I got started working on games a lot. There's certain like background characters who just trigger like a conversation, like when you get near them. So like if you're walking through a town and you walk by a store and there's people talking in front of the store.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they record, you know, 10 or 15 lines of them. So every time you walk by them, they're having...
They have a different, yeah.
Yeah, so can you imagine how annoying it would be, though, if every time you walked by them and they played this one audio clip, it was some guy, like, smacking, or you could hear, like, the, you know, background of, like, music coming in, 'cause especially when they master all that audio really hardcore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can't have stuff coming in.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be silent.
I was asking that I got a contact through someone else about someone who does audiobooks, and I said, I have a booth, and I was wondering if I could make some extra cash, like having people coming and read it here. He said, well, I need to hear the booth first, so he wanted me to record it, just silence with the condenser, and maybe or just doing a random line. Hey, this is a test of the microphone. He wanted to hear the room. And I actually didn't have time to do it because then the booth got sold, so I'm waiting on the new one. Anyway, the point he was saying is like, it needs to be really dead.
Yep.
It's actually more dead than music. And he actually said, like, for him, he likes to have stuff, a de-esser on the way in, and compress on the way in, and even EQ a little bit on the way in, so it's already kind of like pre.
Oh yeah, I mean,
pre-mix.
When I would get like, you know, do audiobooks from like, you know, Random House or Penguin or some of these like big publishers.
Yeah.
They would send over a spec sheet.
Wow.
Of like, here's how far the mic needs to be from the actor's mouth.
Really?
Here's what they need to be using. Here's how the angle needs to be. Here's what your sample rate you should be recording at. Here's what you should be doing. Here's what you should be speccing in volume wise. Average. Here's what your highest point should be. Here's what your lowest point should be. They have a whole list of stuff.
So it's really precise. Is it the kind of thing that if they have someone like quality control, someone who comes after and, hey, we have to repunch this line, or...
it would be, because usually like if it was a, you know, a fairly decently long audiobook, you would record like, you know, 5 or 6 days in a row.
Yeah.
So you would get to the end of the first day. In certain ones, they would have us like upload at lunch. So you'd record until lunch, and then you would upload everything before you went and took your lunch break, and then somebody would start editing it.
Oh, wow.
And I've literally worked on audiobooks. By the time we got to the end of the day, I had a list of like pickups, and they would just send you like a PDF that had highlighted like, we need these lines, we need this, there's lip smack on this, there's noise on this he's a little, you know, because you're trying to catch everything, but you know, you need somebody that's diving into this that's completely separate from it.
Is there a producer on audiobooks? Like, is there someone also who is like, so you are engineering and you have to sometimes probably, you are the only one in the room, so you probably have to think of the technical, but also, did they kind of like have a weird mouth sound here or whatever? There was
always, on the bigger audiobooks, there was always somebody else in the room.
Okay.
So there's usually a director, audio director for it. And they would, you know, they would go through the book that, you know, before this would start, and they would get pronunciations of funny words. Because if, you know, if it's your book that you're reading, you obviously know all the words that are in it.
Yeah.
But if you're just an actor reading some other book, there might be some, you know, $5 word in there that you're like,
yeah.
I don't know what this is or how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we don't think about that, but actually it's huge. And all the thing with like, probably like the mouth weird noise, like smacking and stuff.
Oh yeah.
All that stuff.
That's, you know, for all the dialogue for games, I mean, that's a big thing. Like, okay, is that cleanable? No. Okay, then let's get it again. Is it cleanable? Yes. Okay, we'll go, you know, move on. Okay, do we have another take of it? Do we have, you know...
Isotope is your friend.
Oh my God. Isotope is...
Did it change, like, the way dialogue is...
I think so.
Right.
I think their stuff...
Shout out to the Isotope.
Yeah, man, those guys... Everybody's like, well, how do they do it? And I'm like, I don't know, witchcraft, they sold their soul. Like, I don't know how they figured out the algorithms.
But they do it,
out.
Yeah.
But I've literally I was working on an orchestral thing, and we had one take of this one cue. So we had to use that take.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't notice or somebody didn't care or whatever the case was. Someone slides a chair midway through the take. Like not a little across the floor, like slid a chair.
Damn.
And it somehow got through. And it's like, well, that's the only take we have. What are we going to do? I got in with RX and I got it out.
Whoa.
Like I got rid of the chair sliding across the room.
Whew.
And it's like, how could you do this 5 years ago? That was
you would have to go back.
Congratulations, your record has the chair sliding across it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, some of the stuff that we get out of these dialogue stuff, it's like, we got some stuff where the actor was standing too close to the TV that they're reading their script off of. And so they were getting reflections off because we're using Omni mics for dialogue. And
it's on Omni for dialogues?
Mm-hmm, so
for the ambience?
Yeah, so we use on the MOCAP stage and in the studio for most video games. Not all, but especially anything that's been MOCAPed. We put two DPAs on their forehead. Mm-hmm. And it's a 4060 and a 4061. Mm-hmm. The only difference between those two mics is the 4061's 10 dB, got a 10 dB pad in it. Mm-hmm. So that's our safety. So that way you can run the pre's at the same level. But then you get a 10 dB. Yeah. So if it's like, I missed and they clipped this one. Yeah. I've got a safety mic that's right there.
You don't have a compressor on the way?
No.
Why?
Because what if you overcompress it? What if you catch it?
Yeah.
There's so much thing, or if you're hitting it a little too hard and it's bringing up the noise floor.
Yeah.
That all that stuff has to be, done. It has to be recorded. It's very, very specific because the editing and mastering pipeline have to be basically streamlined. So it has to be, everything has to be the model of efficiency. So it has to all go through the same way because, some of these games now have 200,000 lines in them.
Wow.
Who
is in charge of keeping track of which line is what? That's some serious
Oh, yeah. The Google spreadsheets that I've been a part of are mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's just
when you have a session of 100 tracks, you are like, oh, there's so many tracks.
Yeah.
Here's what, 400? You need to be on HD. If you work on Pro Tools, you're on HD, right? You need all the extra track, right?
So actually, our sessions get broken down pretty small because a lot of the times, on the MOCAP stage, we can have 9 or so actors on it, so it's 18 mics. So that's it for it, and then they'll go through and they'll use one mic, one track for each actor when they're done. So you might have 9 tracks for those actors. And then they get fully mastered, so you have fully mastered 9 tracks. And then, so it doesn't really stack up super big. I mean, the music side of it still does. I think, some of the stuff we're dealing with musically right now is, 800. I think the session that the game we're working on right now, the music for it's 950 tracks per music cue.
Oh.
But it's because, they recorded 4 passes with the orchestra, and then they did, 10 mics for this percussion setup, and they did 5 passes of percussion, and you start to see how it just balloons up and balloons up and balloons up. So then you're definitely have to have a HDX rig. Do you
do the editing on that too, or the comp and stuff with the director or whatever, or if you have all those passes?
I'm not doing much with the music side of the video game stuff.
Okay.
Mostly dialogue.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, the music stuff, early on in my career, every once in a while, I would not be prepared enough for a session and be like, oh, it's going to sound really good once it gets mixed. Don't worry, it's going to, and it's you don't want to say that. You want them to be like, this sounds amazing while we're tracking.
Yeah. And it's going to sound even more amazing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you want to take it to that next level.
It's funny, there's something that I realized recently. It's now because when you start mixing, you start to re-engineering the record, or see what you should have done, because you are later in the process.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm realizing, now I get the hardware gear. While you want sometime to have a compressor on the way in, while you want to have an EQ on the way in, because why wait?
Right.
If why not dial the sound right away and get closer and the artists get excited, it's less work for you. I was watching that tutorial of this mixer. He was saying sometimes he spends a lot of time re-engineering the record, like when he has to automate every line because there's no compressor on it and it's just too jumping and stuff. That should be done before.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes a lot of the mix work is actually kind of engineering the thing to get it mix ready.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of projects that, like, I've worked on where I knew I wasn't going to be the mix engineer, and so I would leave. I wouldn't carve the EQ as hard going in as I would. I wouldn't compress it quite the way I would. And anytime that would ever happen, I'd always be like, "This doesn't sound super great."
Yeah,
but I was trying to leave as much for the mix engineer, so that way, maybe he wants a ton of low end in the kick, maybe he wants that 20 hertz in there. What you don't know.
You don't know,
and so you want to leave that stuff for them.
But when you are mixing the thing you're recording, it's like
you're like, I don't want to start from scratch. Like some of the stuff should have just been figured out on the day recording.
On the day recording,
and so now I'm kind of that sort of hybrid where it's like. Yeah, maybe I won't click this roll-off up as far as I would. Maybe I'll click it one roll-off down, and then I'll add, in Pro Tools I'll add, the roll-off that I wanted. Or, on the console, whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting. One last question. How do you see the music business in 2019? Well, it's the end of 2019, but let's say 2019.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, you have so many people that have access to making stuff. So there's so much stuff coming out and so much stuff that people can do their own stuff and make really cool, interesting stuff. But it's also, there's a lot of bad stuff because there's not, and, there's on the engineering side of it, there's a little bit of well, I have Pro Tools. I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
And it's no, that just having Pro Tools does not make you an engineer.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of the engineering side that's sort of been, I don't want to say negated, but sort of kind of what you do is not that super important.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because what we do is really technical and really a skill. I've been doing it 17 years and I still feel like I learn stuff every day. Yeah. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. I hit the 10,000 hours a couple of years ago, and
and you're still learning.
I think the next 10,000 are going to be even better.
Yeah.
You keep learning, you keep advancing, you keep trying to get better, you keep figuring stuff out. So on that side, you see a little bit of the devaluation of the engineering.
Yeah, especially because a lot of people are producing their own record.
Yep.
So they have to by default be engineer.
Yep.
And so in that sense, for sure. But I feel like it's been devaluated, but also because there is less acoustic music recorded. I mean...
Totally.
Yeah.
So, if you're using samples in the box, then guess what? Your strings sound awesome because they were recorded awesome.
Yeah. Because an engineer...
Because an engineer knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, so it all goes back to... having a good engineer, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many sound libraries, there's so many samples, there's some times where, I'm a bass player. Sometimes I won't pull out my bass. I'll just record it MIDI because it's easier, it's faster. I can get 57,000 different bass tones instantly. Yeah. It's the ability, 5 years ago, if you would have told me that I could literally pick any Ampeg bass rig that I wanted to put together and do it, I would have been like, that's amazing. I'm going to be rich. I must be rich. Yeah. And it's no, you can buy the Ampeg bundle and then you've got it all on your computer. Yeah. And it sounds, everybody, there's this whole theory of does it sound as good? Yeah. 99% of the people on the planet won't be able to tell you the difference.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
That's it for today's episode. You can find out more about Jeremy at www.jeremyunderwood.com. If you like the podcast, be sure to subscribe to catch the next episode, share with a friend, and leave a review. You can follow me on Instagram at elevate.music.productions or check out the website www.elevatemusicproductions.com. Also, If you want more free content, you can sign up for my Elevate Music Productions mailing list and receive my free ebook, Get the Most Out of Your Mixer. This is a simple guide that clearly explains how to export your tracks, as well as the mindset you should have when sending your song to your mixing engineer, even if this is you. Thank you for listening to Elevate Music Talks. I will see you for the next episode. Take care.